Assalamu alaikum, hello and welcome to all of you in another session in the series of ACCA CPDs on taxation. Our today's topic is sales tax returns, their filing, initial registering, revising, and ancillary issues associated with reference to the province of Sindh. And the relevant body for that is the Sindh Revenue Board. First things first, for those of you who have attended previous sessions, this one should be quite easy. The reason being, these sales tax systems, their issues, returns filing across all different provinces are quite similar. So we have previously covered the same for Punjab. The relevant body there being PRA, Punjab Revenue Authority. We have also covered the same for KP, the relevant body there being the KP Revenue Authority. Now when we are covering the Sindh Revenue Board, some of you might be those who have attended those previous sessions. So this should come like really light for you guys. For those who are attending this session for the first time, after this session, I would suggest you can go back to the recordings of the previous sessions on ACCA's channel on either by Meer, if you are comfortable with it, the streaming and all, or on ACCA's channel at YouTube. Why I am saying that is, if you are practicing in the field of taxation, or even if you are working in the field of taxation as an employee in any organization, chances are more likely than not you would have to deal with issues pertaining to the other federating units. Because look, you are normally doing business across Pakistan. It's not that you would only be doing business in Punjab, Sindh, KVK or Balochistan. At least some element of the dealings could be across provinces. Yes, there are a few SME organizations which might have their dealings centered around a particular province, but even otherwise, if you know more about the coverage of these laws, your own professional growth would be assisted, plus you would have better career progression opportunities, and not to mention the ACCA CPD units, right? Great. So another thing that I want to share with you, that these CPDs are actually high value. The good thing is that ACCA is offering these CPDs for its members free of cost. We do know that when we organize similar CPDs for corporate sector or other organizations, the participating fee for every participant is actually quite material, and at times it's even on the verge of extravagant. So this is actually an exceptional value that ACCA is delivering for you guys. So our today's session, sales tax return with reference to Sindh Revenue Board, registration, filing, revising, and ancillary issues. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa ahlul uqdatin min lisani yafqahu qawli. O Allah, open my heart and ease my task for me, and remove the impediments from my speech so that they may understand what I say. First things first, those of you who are attending a repeat session or have previously attended any of my sessions know me well. For others, just a quick first-time intro. I'm a fellow chartered certified accountant, and I also hold a CFA charter. In addition to that, the anti-money laundering specialization, BSc honors in applied accounting, several other professional certifications, fraud management, risk management, taxation, etc. Over 15 years plus fund of experience, gained working in top management position, both abroad as well as in Pakistan. At the moment, I'm serving as a managing partner at Millennium Law and Corporate Company, which also happens to be the pioneer ACCA practicing firm. In addition to that, I'm also serving on the board of a few corporate entities. Beside that, with reference to training, I'm honored to have conducted mandatory promotional trainings of government officers at MPDD, have worked with the like of National Bank of Pakistan, HBL, several top corporate entities in Pakistan and abroad, Lahore Karachi Tax Bar Association, Lahore Karachi Chambers, Pakistan Tax Bar Association, UAE, Barrier University, etc., etc. And obviously our very own ACCA. If you are into reading, I also write regularly on technical issues in various English language dailies and research journals. At the moment, I'm serving as the 4th time serving chairman liaison committee at Lahore Tax Power and 2nd time serving chairman taxation committee of ACCA Pakistan. Also honored to be representing Pakistan on the Global Tax Forum, and beside that also on the board of several think tanks and associated with several other professional associations. So much about me. These are some of the existing clients and associations. I'll skip through the next couple of slides. Reason being, you'll have to copy of this presentation, and let's just proceed on to the topic. Okay, communication is a two-way process, so I appreciate that you be asking the questions. Keep writing your questions if you have any, and we'll be having question answer break in between. Some of the people are mentioning that they have some sound issue. A couple of members, can you guys tell me if you are able to hear me? Because there is no technical red flag here. So if you can hear me, then this must be with your own systems. If you can quickly just type and respond whether you can hear me. Yes. Perfect. So I guess Ali and Tanvir, that this must be some issue with either your headphone, your voice settings, or your internet connection. Please check that out. Everything seems to be fine from our end. Okay, guys. So about today's session, what we'll be covering. We'll begin with a brief discussion on taxation laws and direct versus indirect taxation. Then we will go discussing the history of sales tax in Pakistan, the introduction, scope, and administration. We will also share with you some very handy practical stuff which will come handy while you are working. So we'll share with you SRB contact details, a tax calendar, relevant legislations, and details of the major sectors that SRB is striving to cover and expand upon. Then we'll get into the thick of things. We'll begin with registering for sales tax with Sindh Revenue Board. We'll see that for various cases, including in case you already have an NTN, in case you have an NTN but no record is fine, and in case you have no NTN. We will then discuss e-enrollment, where as per SRB, there are currently two different processes, the e-enrollment activation and new enrollment. We will be covering practicalities, that what is actually happening as opposed to this stuff that SRB has shared on its website. We will then proceed on to the actual discussion on filing of sales tax returns with procedures, examples, screenshots. We will also be discussing about the filing of revised returns. At times there is a need to file a revised return. Maybe you discovered something was missed or a genuine error. So for that, the process of revised return is there, and extremely simple, last but not least, the filing of nil return associated with the ancillary issues. While interactive question answer session is mentioned separately, we will be having regular question answers break in between, and you can answer the questions you have. And one thing, I will also be asking you questions, so we will have an idea that how actively you are participating in today's session. Well, if we have all sacrificed our Saturday mornings or taken time out from work, we might be paying attention to make it worth our while, right? Great. Let's proceed. First things first, a professional acknowledgement that the stuff that you are about to see in this presentation and be shared with you is compiled after using several legislations and reports of Sindh Revenue Board, Federal Board of Revenue, and our own firm, Millennium Law and Corporate Company. Obviously, we have a limited time period due to which we have focused on the core areas. Certainly, the topic of taxation is so huge that you can expand it as much as you want. But today, we would try to focus on all the core areas and ensure that we deliver value that you go richer from this session in terms of your technical knowledge of the subject that we are about to cover. So first things first, taxation laws. What are taxation laws? Shouldn't be a problem for you being professional chartered certified accountants, having studied these concepts in your professional studies and maybe applying them at your work. Basically, taxation laws are a set of laws that governments enact in order to drive revenues. Why? So that the government can function, so that the standard of living of the population, at least in theory, can be increased. As far as Pakistan is concerned, we have one of the most complex taxation systems globally. We have over 70 different types of distinct taxes and their associated legislations. So you can have an idea the scope of the matter that we are discussing about. Well, taxes, broadly speaking, can be divided among two major categories. Number one, the direct taxes. Number two, the indirect taxes. Direct taxes, extremely simple concept. As the name suggests, these are taxes levied directly on the income. Mr. Arsalan is working for a company. He's being paid a salary. The tax deducted on that salary is income tax. We have ABC Corporation trading in a certain industry. The corporate tax applied on the profits of ABC Corporation, income tax for that business. However, Pakistan has an interesting phenomenon due to the nature of the economy, which is largely undocumented. Many of our income tax provisions are in effect by nature the provisions of indirect taxes. For example, there are certain taxes such as turnover tax, which is, as you will see from the definition, are an example of indirect taxes in that they are not levied on the income, but rather the value of the transaction that is being conducted. But as I told you, we have a very complex taxation system. They have been inserted within the income tax provisions. If you are more interested in that, because that is not the topic for today, you can go to ACCA's channel on Vimeo or YouTube, even my personal channel by my name. You have the recording of detailed sessions on income tax ordinances that we have covered there. So go to that in your leisure time to build on your professional capacity. Which brings us back to the topic, indirect taxes. These are taxes which are not levied on income directly, but rather on transactions. And our very own sales tax is an example of an indirect tax. Sales tax is basically such an indirect tax which is ad valorem in nature. What do we mean by ad valorem tax? Ad valorem tax is a type of indirect tax whose value basically is dependent on the value of the transaction. So the higher the value of the transaction, the higher the tax that will be accumulated. Sales tax in Pakistan is levied on sale of goods and obligor services. The same is true globally. In Pakistan, our sales taxes are normally imposed on the gross price. What do we mean by this concept of gross price? This means the seller's net cost price, the price at which he purchased the stuff, plus the sales tax that the seller paid, plus the seller's profit. So the purchase price includes all the usual concept of purchase price, including carriage that is necessary to transport the stuff, to bring it in a working condition, all that stuff I'm sure you are familiar with. So this all is added up at each point of sale. And what is the result? The result is a cost for the end consumer, because along the chains, it is passed on to the next chain. You are conducting the business, you are collecting this tax, adding on your margin, passing it on. The next one, they are adding on their margin, passing it on, and so on and so on and so on. However, because this is imposed on the gross price, there is an element of a partial double taxation because of the nature of the transaction. We'll be discussing these things in more detail, but let's first discuss the history of sales tax in Pakistan, the evolution and the current administration, and how SRB came into being. What is it doing? Why is it there at all? What has changed over time? The history, actually, you'll find it quite fascinating. Again, the guys who have attended my previous session are familiar with this, so just bear for next few minutes while I cover this for the new participants. Well, under SI number 48 of List 2, the provincial legislative list of the 7th schedule to the Government of India 1935, which, when read with Section 100, subsection 3 thereof, the powers to levy and collect taxes on the sale of goods and advertisement. Focus here, sale of goods and advertisement was a provincial subject. This act was applied to Pakistan also in terms of Section 8 of the Indian Independence Act 1947. So when our country came into being, what happened was, initially in Pakistan, just like pre-independent, independent era subcontinent, the sales tax was only applicable on goods and advertisement. That's all. That's all. Full stop. In 1948, however, a year after independence was gained, sales tax was made a federal levy, and the Pakistan General Sales Tax Act 1948 was enacted. This came into effect on 1st of April 1948. The date, I'm sure, wasn't chosen on purpose. It was just a coincidence that this date was chosen. However, later on, this act, just after 3 years, was superseded by the Sales Tax Act 1951. Initially, the sales tax was levied only on sale of goods and sale and consumption of goods, and that too mostly was focused locally. However, through the Taxation of Goods Sales and Purchase Order 1960, the scope of sales tax under this 1951 Act was extended to include, beyond this, initial sale and consumption of goods, to include not only just sale but importation, exportation, production, manufacture, and consumption of goods. So you see how the context was evolving, how more and more areas were being brought within the sphere of sales tax. So in 1990, the Sales Tax Act 1990 replaced the 1951 Act and introduced the current VAT type sales taxation on goods. So sales tax on services, it might be interesting for you to know, was never a subject of the federal legislative list. Being a matter not included in the federal legislative list or the concurrent list in the Constitution, the matters relating to levy and collection of sales tax on services were in provincial domain. What do we mean by that? Well, when the Constitution was agreed upon, there were certain things drawn up, especially with regard to the powers of the Federation and provinces. So the federal legislative list basically covered all those areas on which the legislation was to be done and administered by the Federation of Pakistan. The concurrent list was a very interesting concept, the concurrent legislative list. Basically, this list said that for any matters, the Federation has first right. But if the Federation has not legislated, the province can legislate. However, if the Federation at any point of time was to decide to legislate, then the Federation's legislation would supersede the provincial legislation. Now, because this was in none of these areas, it was effectively, by the time I'm referring to sales tax on services, it was effectively in the purview of the provinces and their provincial domains. So this position was further clarified and reasserted by the 5th Constitutional Amendment of 76, and later on the 18th Constitutional Amendment, the infamous one in 2010, in relation to item number 49 of Part A of the 4th schedule of the 73 Constitution. Anyway, sales tax ordinances of 2000, including the previous Sindh Sales Tax Ordinance 2000, were promulgated by the provinces and came into effect from 1st of July 2000, and the central excise duty, which had by now become the federal excise duty on such provincially taxed services, were, as per common sense, withdrawn in order to avoid the duplicity of taxation. However, the provincial sales tax on services continued to be administered and collected by FPR under even these 2000 ordinances. Now, so Roman, this is very confusing. You just said this was not in the federal or concurrent legislative list. It was not a provincial federal matter. It was in the provincial domain. So why was it still being administered and collected by FBR? Good questions. Because the provinces neither did any legislation, nor did build any institution, nor did had any capacity. And there were also issues pertaining to the clarification of certain ambiguities. So what was practically happening was that FBR was collecting this and passing it on to the provinces. However, the system was, it is argued, inefficient in the sense that FBR did not have much incentive to be very efficient in this domain as compared to the provincial bodies who now know whatever they are collecting and administering is going into the provincial kitty. And Sindh Revenue Board on their website, as I'll show you in a bit, very proudly mentioned this fact, comparing their collections with FBR and year by year astronomical growth and all that. Anyway, later on in terms of Article 8 and 9 subsection 2 of the famous 7th NFC award, again that was in 2010, the Sindh Sales Tax on Services Act 2011 was enacted by the Sindh government, which became effective on 1st of July 2011. And by the way, Sindh was the first province to take lead and legislate and actually create their own provincial revenue authority named Sindh Revenue Board. Sindh was the first one, Punjab followed suit, and KPK was the third one to catch up, and our on Balochistan was the last one. Anyway, so now with this enactment in 2011, what happened was that the Sindh sales tax on services started to be administered, regulated, and collected by Sindh Revenue Board in accordance with the legislations done by the Sindh Provincial Assembly. Make sense? So what would happen, as we'll also cover in legislation, is that every year when the provincial budget would come, the rates would be updated, certain services would either be included in taxable supplies, exempt supplies, new areas and sectors would be brought in, rates would be twinkled with, and all that. Once that was agreed by the Assembly, the budget, the finance bill, that would become part of the Finance Act, and that would update and be incorporated into the relevant schedule of the Sindh Sales Tax Act. So that is updated every year, just on the same pattern like the Sales Tax Act 1990, administered by FBR, or like the other provincial sales tax legislations. Anyway, as I've told you, Punjab enacted its set of legislations in 2012, which we have covered extensively in the session on a similar topic with regard to PRA, and KPK followed suit the next year. So FBR, on the same day as Sindh Revenue Board's relevant legislation, Sindh Sales Tax on Services Act was enacted, issued a press release on its website declaring that the federal excise duty on the services which are now being taxed by the provinces are hereby withdrawn, which made sense. Now the provinces were administering them, so there was no sense really to be taxing the same thing again and again with regard to the same legislation, effectively the same kind of taxation. So that was effectively handed over to the provinces. The Federal Board of Revenue withdrew this, the same thing I've told you. You can see here, okay, I'll quickly run it through. The Federal Board of Revenue, through a notification, has withdrawn federal excise duty on such services. This is just the reference table 2 of first schedule to Federal Excise Act 2005 with effect from the same date, that is 1st of July, in order to avoid double taxation. So there you go. So that was the interesting history of sales tax evolution in Pakistan and how SRB was formed, how SS Sindh Sales Tax on Services Act, the abbreviation SSTSA, came into being. Just some handy stuff for you there, especially if you are into dealing with the practicalities. You have the Sindh Revenue Board contact details. They have 3 major offices in Sindh. The head office is based in Karachi. For those based in Karachi who should be quite familiar, it's in Shaheen Complex on MR Kiani Road. You have the address, contact details, the relevant emails, everything there. So if you have any issue, you need to contact them. They should come in handy. They also have a regional office in one of the other largest cities, Hyderabad. Here are the contact details, which I'm sure our members joining in from Hyderabad would be familiar with. And again, you have the contact details here. Lastly, they also have a regional office in Sakhar. And here we have the contact details, the address, the email, and contact number. So guys, before we continue, if you have any questions till now, now is the time. Okay, all these things are today's program coordinator, Mr. Saif Ali, has shared, will be emailed to you. We will even try during the break to get it incorporated in the hands-out section. So you would have the copy of these presentation notes in your hands-out section. Thanks a lot. You are welcome. Any questions, guys? I'll give you 30 seconds and then we'll move on. So seems like everything is fine so far, so good. No questions. Okay, you can type your questions and we'll, okay, and we have a question. Okay, you can type your questions so that when we have the question answer break, we don't have to take a short break and I can just quickly answer your questions one by one. I will try to answer all of them. So Sunil Maheshwari has asked, example of submitting tax returns in terms of date. Well, these are the topics we are about to cover, Sunil, so bear with us. Any questions about what we have covered till now? Okay, just write the questions and we'll come back and answer them. Okay, guys, so let's talk about the tax calendar. Again, the pattern is quite similar to what you are used to with regard to the other provincial authorities. The last date for the payment of taxes 15th of the month following the tax period. So for example, you wanted to file the sales tax return for the period ending November, 30th of November, this last month, 2017. So the last date by which you need to pay your due tax liability to the Treasury would be 15th of December, 2017. However, you would have 3 more days to finalize and submit your return, which is 18th of December, 2017. In the instance of this example. Well, this is the law we have to follow, but logically speaking, why we have 3 more days to file the return? Because you cannot file the return unless you have paid your tax liability. It just won't submit, as we will see later on in the session. Hence, you are given 3 more days to finalize your return after the deadline for paying your tax liability. One quick thing, if you have no tax liability, obviously you don't need to pay anything and you can just straight away submit your sales tax return. Legislations. Let's go on this link and see the relevant legislation which govern the scope, administration and practicalities of sales tax in Sindh. This is just for information purposes. This has been already covered extensively. This has already been covered extensively in previous sessions by ACCA, and again the recordings are available online. So here, this is a link on Sindh Revenue Board's website, which we have shared with you. Here you can download all these actual legislations. You can see there is the working tariff on Sindh sales tax on services, the latest updated one, the special procedures, withholding rules. You have the ordinance, tax laws amendment ordinance, the Finance Act. you have the Companies Profit Workers Participation Act, you have the Finance Bill of 2016, you have the Companies Profit Worker Participation Act for prior year 2015, you have the Sindh Sales Tax on Services Ordinance, which was amended, Sindh Sales Tax on Services Amended Act. So you have all the legislations all here at one place. And this is the home page of Sindh Revenue Board, where we'll be coming again and again and again in a bit though. So let's go back. These are the set of legislations which are relevant and you should be aware of. Next up, details of major sectors which are covered by Sindh Sales Tax on Services Act. Again, this is only included for your quick reference. A detailed session on Sindh Sales Tax on Services Act has been conducted and recordings are available on ACCA's channel. However, this is the link on SRB's website, which you can quickly refer to should you wish. They have given quick notes about the major sectors, the applicable rates, etc., etc. So let's move back. Which brings us to the thick of things. Let's begin with the first interesting thing. The registration for sales tax on services with Sindh Revenue Board in case you are an existing entity in holders. Now there are two ways about this. I can go through all the theory or I can show you practically how it's done. Or better still, I can do both. So you'll begin by visiting the portal on Sindh Revenue Board's website. Here we are. This is the direct link to the portal, or should you prefer, you can come here and click on e-registration. And it will effectively take you to the same page and the next step. If we were to use that link, we would come here in e-registration and click on new e-registration having NTN, and it will bring us to the same page. So two ways of going to the same destination. Now once we are here, we click on e-registration in e-services tab and we click on new e-registration. We have done that. Next we'll enter our NTN and the system will show our registration particulars as an FPR. Let's see if it does. I am just gonna enter the NTN of a client I took authorization from. Meanwhile, if any of you are practicing, please feel free to share the NTN or login details of any client who has allowed you, so that if you are comfortable with it, we can also give a real-time demo to our members today. So see, you enter your NTN number and here it shows you the detail as held by FPR. So I have the name of the taxpayer here. You can read that. I hope this is quite clear because this is engrossed. You have the registration number because this was a corporate entity as held by FPR, and you have the status that they are not an individual or AOP but rather a corporate entity. So next thing, the quick internet security we have become used to. Enter these image characters and click on OK. I'm not going to do that because my client has not allowed me yet to register with Sindh Revenue Board. Anyway, once you'll do that, it will bring you to the next screen, which would look something like this in the registry section. What you'll do here is you'll complete the registry section. It would show your existing details. If there is an error, you can amend it. Maybe since you registered with FPR, you have started doing some additional business. Maybe you have changed your offices. You were in a rented property. You moved to another. Could be many scenarios. So just update the details. If everything is in the order that you want, no issue. So this is what would appear in front of you. And mostly everything would be in order. But if you want to amend anything, you would have the option to select the relevant period, to change the start date if you want to change your address if that's been changed, to add any additional area of business, as we'll see in a bit. Next up, At the bottom, it would be showing you agent particulars under section 67. You'll enter the particulars of your representation, whether you are acting in your own capacity as self, maybe you are an individual who is registering, or you are authorized under 67 in your capacity as an employee, authorized agent, the director of the company, etc., etc. If applicable, particularly in case of agent, authorized agent or self, you'll enter the CNIC number and your name, especially if you are an AOP. In case of companies, normally this doesn't come if you are using the company as itself being authorizing it. You'll enter your relevant particulars. The particulars of the person who is acting as the agent would come here. So the standard pattern, the address in multiple lines, province, district, city, area, town, then the contact details, the phone number, cell number, email, fax if any, and that's it. You'll then click on the Save Registry button, and this will save your particulars. This is a must to save the registry before you move on to the next section, because otherwise the details you have worked here and here might be lost. So this is specially mentioned that you have to save the registry. Next up, you'll have the details, the chance to enter details of the directors and shareholders. Obviously, this is common sense. This is only applicable if you are talking about a corporate entity. If you are talking about a sole proprietorship or a partnership, what would you do? Come on, quickly, some responses. Let me see how many of you are awake. Come on, what would you do? Seth, don't answer that in between the session, otherwise they go easy. They say, okay, we can always watch that later on. Tell them, I'll tell you that in a bit after the end of the session. G, any answers? Okay, very good. We've got an answer from Ali Arsalan, the first one to answer. Very good. Anyone else? Come on, guys. We have so many members. We have hundreds of members logged in, and just one is replying. Come on, you can do better. Come on, come on. Quick, quick, quick. Quick. You know what? Over the break, I'll now make some polls, and Saf will enter them. And you will be marked on the polls. So if you're not going to answer this way, then I'll get the answer that way. So, okay, some people are asking to repeat the question. The question is, if you are registering a client who is not a company, a corporate entity, but who is a sole proprietor or maybe a partnership, what would you do with this section, which is asking you to provide details of directors and shareholders? I hope you can't see the question because it's not written. I just spoke it again. Okay, we have multiple answers very quickly. Some answers which were right, started by Ali Arsalan Khan. Well done, Ali. Was you'll simply leave it out. Move on to the next section. We also got an answer by Rebel, select corporate. Rebel, you'll only select corporate if it's applicable. My question specifically stated that this is not a corporate entity, hence that won't be the case. You wouldn't just select corporate for the sake of it. Osama also rightly answered this tab won't appear in the case of non-corporate, so skip it. Murtaza said partners, so I'm assuming he said move on to the partners section. Sarang also rightly answered nothing, move forward. Rafiq, the partner of sole proprietor, will be entered. Rafiq, not here, in only the sole proprietor section. In the registry section, we have entered those details. Talha said skip it. We will skip. Sadbin. See, now the answers are coming like flowing water. Such a motivation of the poll question. Great. So well done. Right answers, guys. You will skip this in case you are not dealing with a corporate entity. You will only enter the details if you are registering a corporate entity with Sindh Revenue Board. And the process was extremely simple. For every director, you'll enter either their NTN or CNIC, whatever is available, one or the other. The system would automatically generate the other if you don't have. So if you enter the CNIC, from CNIC, they would get their NTN. But ideally, you should have both if you are a company secretary or their authorized agent. And you'll enter their share of the capital. So like if it's a company with 3 lakh or whatever, and you have 3 directors and each has 1 lakh each, so you'll enter the NTN CNIC for first one, 1 lakh for his share of capital, click on add, then the second line would open. You'll enter the same details for the second director, click on add, the third line will open. Enter for the third director, click on add, and so on and so on. This will bring you to the next section, which deals with add other activities. If you have any other activity or activities other than the principal, please give details. I did mention to you initially that the details that you registered with, the FPR would be appearing here. However, if for some reason you have started some additional activities later on, this is your chance. From here, the drop-down menu, you would be able to select the major category of the additional activity, and then you will have the relevant codes. You'll click on this button. Do not forget to click on this button of add activity, because this is a must. Once you'll click on the button of add activity, the activity would be added. If you have another activity, again from the drop-down menu, select the activity, click on add activity. So for example, you can be a business which initially started out as a call center. Later on, you started delivering softwares. So your principal activity initially was call center services. Now what you can do is, from the drop-down menu, you can also select the relevant category and subcategory for software development, and so on and so on. Next one, business and branches. If you operate from more than 1 locations through your business branches or outlets, you have to give details of all in this section of the registration form. So you'll select the type, whether this is the head office or a branch office. They'll come in the drop-down menu. Then you'll enter the name of the business or branch. If they are different, trade name, normally it's the same for all the branches. But if it's different, you can always mention that. The address in the same usual format. You enter the street, you enter the tehsil, taluka, province, district, city, area, town, etc., etc. Then you have to mention whether these premises are owned or rented or other. What can be other? It belonged to your father, he just allowed you to use it. You haven't rented it. So those possibilities are also covered here. You also have to enter the owner's CNIC or NTN. Now they require that. And if there's a gas connection, you have to enter the consumer number or the electricity reference number. Normally, electricity connection is almost always there, even if there is no gas connection. Then enter the contact details, landline, if any, of the branch. Then enter, select in fact from the drop-down menu, start date of this particular branch or head office, whatever this address is. And if this was closed, since you registered with FPR and is appearing, you just select the close date and add the business. So effectively, you can remove an address which was previously added when you originally registered with FPR, or you can add a new address. Obviously, you can do both. You can add multiple addresses by doing the same process and clicking on this add business button after every one. This will bring you to the next section of bank account details. You add your bank account details here. Supposedly this is for the period when the law would evolve so much that you would be issued the sales tax refunds and they can effectively be directly wired to your bank account. There's no problem with visualizing and having goals and dreams, right? So this is about that. Now, again, it's extremely simple, but I'll run you through. You'll enter the account number, the account title, select the account, current savings, whatever it is. Then you'll select your relevant bank, the city, the branch, the account start date. And again, just like the previous section, just like we did for branches. If this account has since closed and the details were previously registered with FBR, you would just select the close date and click on Add Account. That's it. If this is a new account, leave the close date section as it is, select the start date and fill the relevant section as we have just discussed, click on Add Account. You have just added the bank account. Obviously, you can add as many as you want, but normally businesses just like to either don't or at the most add one. Why? See our sessions on Sindh Sales Tax on Services Act for that. Next. So now we have reached the end of the registration form. Here you have to sign the declaration that everything you have mentioned is true to the best of your knowledge and belief. Nothing has been concealed therein, etc., etc. The date would automatically appear. This is the date you are working it on, and you have to enter your CNIC, or in case you are a non-resident Pakistani or for some reason you don't have your CNIC, your passport number, your name, and that's it. You do not sign it, although there is a section for sign. So what do you do if you don't sign it? You'll see in a bit. So after declaration, this is official area. In this official section, it would show the user ID and your allotted tax office. They would come automatically. You will then click on the Save button on Save Your Form. You can make changes if necessary, but if you are to make some changes after saving the form, you have to save those changes again. So after you have saved it, you will click on this Verify Application button, and this box would open up. In this box, you will enter your NTN or your CNIC number. Your mean the authorized representative who has been filling out this registration application, and click on Verify. This Verify is effectively your digital signature. Now, you might have this question in your head that, Sir Omer, Verify is fine. Why is there Unverified? Especially if you haven't dealt with this before. This is because even after verifying, before submitting the application, if something new comes up to your attention and you want to amend the registration application, you can. But to do that, because after verifying, your application would effectively freeze up. You just can't go in a section and make changes and all that happen there. You'll have to click again on this button, Verify/Unverify, and again this tab would open. You will again enter your CNIC or NTN and click on Unverify. And this will allow you to make changes in this registration form, and this can be done before submitting. So you have first chance to make amendments while you save the form. You can make the changes and save again. You again have a chance before submitting. Even if you have verified the application, you can unverify and make any changes you want. But that's the last chance you'll get before submitting. Obviously, after that, you will simply submit your application after verification by clicking on this Submit Application button. So once you have successfully submitted your application, you will be allotted a user ID and password through the email and SMS that you have provided. You would then have to e-enroll, which we will see in a bit, to activate your account and avail all facilities provided by the Sindh Revenue Board. Effectively, what will happen after this process is that SRB will allocate you SNTN, Sindh National Tax Number. What this is, it's basically your NTN preceded by the prefix of S. So in our example, where I was using this, if I was to proceed, my SNTN would become S and this NTN number. That's it, same pattern. However, an activation and passcode will be sent separately to my SMS on the cell I provided and my registered email separately. And I would need them both for my e-enrollment. Why? We'll see that in a bit. First, let's cover the scenario of registering in case you are NTN holders, but it's saying no record found. Can this happen? Let's see if this can happen. Okay, it's bringing me to the same thing again and again. Okay, I guess I have to enter some NTN. SRB system is really good. I think they have incorporated almost all the data. But if there was to be such a problem where it cannot recognize your NTN number that is already registered with FBR and you do not have the data, then it says that we are pretty good at our work. So make sure that you have entered the correct NTN and check digit. The last single number is your check digit. If you don't have that, it can't process your application. It has to be complete. If, however, for some reason your NTN and check digit is correct and you are still getting the message that no taxpayer found for this NTN, then the process is to send an email to this support email, support@srb.gos.pk, the abbreviation for Government of Sindh and Pakistan. And the pattern would be, the subject of the email would be add NTN in database, and in bracket you can write your NTN number, and within the contact, the actual content of the email, you will at least have to mention 3 things in addition to the problem you are encountering: your NTN number, your business name, and the category, the service category you are trading in. A support officer will forward your application and will reply to you as soon as possible through email, resolving your issue and entering your details in the database manually. This is an example where they have used a fictitious number because they are saying we are just so good, it just can't happen. Someone has even taken that NTN by now. This is funny. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5. Let's try this. 4, 5, 6, 5. Awesome. 4. Oh, it's changing it. Interesting feature. Did you notice this? This is an NTN number which is not registered. But as soon as I've entered it, the database has changed automatically this check digit to the first check digit of the registration applicant. So what it's saying effectively, that if you are not registered, it would not say to you anymore that the NTN holder is not found. It would just change it to the next one that is in the series. So if yours was actually 4 and it's doing again and again, this means that the database of Sindh Revenue Board does not hold your detail and you have to do this process. Anyway, so we have covered the registration in case you have your NTN and everything is fine. In case you have your NTN and it's not showing your details, what if you don't have an NTN? Well, there's the theoretical bit which the Sindh Revenue Board has shared, issued notification about, and it's still on their website, and there's the actual bit. Let me tell you what the Sindh Revenue Board says on their website, and then I'll tell you what you should actually do in practice. So in practice, the online link is dead at the moment, and no, I'm not joking. I'll have a look here. This is your e-registration having no NTN, and it will bring you to this page where let's show you the actual thing from the home page. Okay, here we are. So when you click here, you'll be taken here. Those who already have NTN, okay, this link has started working. It was down last night. Anyway, so now the good news is the link is working. Just enter your CNIC. Sir, would you like to share your CNIC number for the whole world to see?
Yeah, sure. 35200 822 093 9. That's right. Seven. That's it.
Should we proceed and just register you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. You'll have to file the returns until you deregister. You'll be legally required to file return every month if I proceed right now. Anyway, we will not do that with Sam, who has been courteous enough to share his details. So you have to enter your details here and click on OK, and that's it. Your application will be sent to Sindh Revenue Board, which will allocate you a provisional registration certificate, which will be valid for 30 days, in which duration you can go to FPR and apply for an NTN. You will enjoy all the facilities during this time period. The facilities being, you can file your return and pay sales tax to Sindh Revenue Board, being such a good taxpayer. And by the way, one word of caution which I told to SAP, and this and more you will get from our session on Sindh Sales Tax on Services Act. Once you have registered, even if you are not trading, even if you have no tax liability, even for goodness sake, if you have no transaction, you would still be legally liable to file a return every month. You have to, unless either you deregister or you start trading, in which case you'll file your return anyway. So, in case the NTN is not issued to you within 30 days, your registration at SRB will be cancelled and you'll be informed through email. Now, practically what happens? Practically this happens that nobody does this. Why? Because this is from a gone era. This was 2011-12 when it was so hard to get NTN, a process of days. There were snags, there were issues. What happens now? Right now, you don't have that problem anymore. All you need to do is you go to FPR's website, and you simply apply for your NTN online. And it's for individual and AOP, you get that there, then immediately. For certain verification cases, especially, particularly in the case of corporate entities. In the case of corporate entities, you have to actually go to your relevant RTO. But even that process does not take long. It's even for companies a single day process. So basically what you do, you are now applying for NTN and getting your NTN the same day. So why would you need to go through this process? Practically what happens, and do remember, as I've just shared, even after this process, you have to go back and apply for NTN. So practically this is not happening anymore. What is happening in this instance in practice is, if you don't have an NTN, you simply go apply for an NTN. It's either, in case you are a sole trader, given to you then and there online. In case you are a corporate entity, again, you just have to go to RTO, give your biometrics for verification, done. The process shouldn't take more than an hour. At the most, one single day, if everything is functioning fine, and the disclaimer is if IRIS is up and running, IRIS is FPR system. So we have covered now all these three eventualities. How do you register with Sindh Revenue Board in case you have an NTN, in case you have an NTN but the details are not appearing, and in case you have no NTN? However, remember one thing, registration only got you in the database of Sindh Revenue Board. You still need to do the process which we refer to as e-enroll or e-enrollment to be able to use the online portal of Sindh Revenue Board. How that's done? Let's have a look. So this is what the website looks like, and you can have a look here. Yeah, see, this is it. So what you do here is you have two options, e-enrollment, new enrollment, which if the link is still dead. So what do? You click on e-enrollment and new enrollment and enter NTNN, image characters. Before proceeding, make sure your email ID, phone numbers are valid, etc., etc. Why is it not functioning? Because this is not, it happens anymore. What happens now is, after you have completed your registration process, you are taken to FPR's website. You log in there and pop-up box comes up which asks you whether you are allowing Sindh Revenue Board to have your details from FPR's database. You allow that and that's it. You log out, you are taken back, come back to Sindh Revenue Board's website, and this is where you come. And what happens now is that you receive an SMS on your mobile phone with a code, which is the activation code, which you have to enter here. And you also receive a passcode in your email. They are not sent to both, unlike the registration in case of FPR, where you get the code on both your email and mobile number. While registering here, you receive the activation code on your mobile and you receive the passcode in your email. You enter them both. You enter your SNTN and then you enter the image characters and you submit, and that's it. Gone. Your e-enrollment process is completed there. Initially, the idea was to have a shared database. So new enrollment would just allow the people who were registered already at FPR to straight away start using a Sindh Revenue Board's website. However, now that Sindh Revenue Board is making its own database, allowing allowing them to have your data and details from FPR's database, effectively there is no e-enrollment per se. It's just activation of e-enrollment, which is done in this way. Once you press the submit button, that's it. Your details would be done, completed. You will receive the new password and PIN code now, both in your email as well as an SMS in your mobile number. This is how it would appear once you log into the FPR portal after completing your registration process, and it would be asking for authorization. Here you'll click on the confirm button and that's it. Your database, just like that, would be transferred to Sindh Revenue Board, and you'll then log into this, go to Sindh Revenue Board's website. Here you'll click on e-enrollment activation, enter these details as we have discussed, click on submit, and your process of registration and e-enrollment will be complete. Now, not only you have registered yourself with Sindh Revenue Board, but you are also ready to use their portal. So you'll have the new password and PIN code in both your email and your SMS. So we have already covered this activation thing, which is effectively the order of the things. We will now be discussing in this section the e-filing of sales tax return, the filing of a nil return, or as we refer to it, the null sales tax return, and the revising of the sales tax return. So before we do that, if you have any questions, now is the time. Oh, we do have some questions. Please write other questions if you have, and try to focus them on the topic. You can ask the relevant questions. If there is any question which is not relevant and we do have some spare time at the end of the session, I will try to answer them before the end of this session. Okay, the question we have: can we give details of associate or parent here? Amit Kumar. Where, Amit? I think you might mean that can we give the details in the section of the directors? No, you will just leave that blank. Okay, what if we establish other branches after registration? As discussed, you can apply for updating your details to SRB and get them included. Okay, can I have handouts please, as I did not receive any of such so in my email? Yeah, Danish, as Saf has shared with you, it is now available in the handout section and you can download it from there. If you are unable to download it, they would still be emailed to you after this session. That was to Danish. Rafiq has asked whether we have to file 4 returns if we are registered at 4 provinces. Well, 5 if you are also registered with FPR. Yes, you have to. It might be that most of them are going nil because you might only be dealing with different provinces only occasionally or periodically. But yeah, if you are registered, you do have to file returns separately with each of the revenue authority or body you are registered with. So we have the FPR administering the federal taxes, federal sales tax on good. We have FPR also administering sales tax on services in Islamabad Capital Territory. We have Sindh Revenue Board administering sales tax on services in the province of Sindh. We have PRA Punjab Revenue Authority administering the sales tax on services in the province of Punjab. We have KPRA, the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Revenue Authority, administering the sales tax on services in KPK. We have the Balochistan's Revenue Authority as well, administering the sales tax on services there. So yes, you have to. How to deregister Saat Apra? Interestingly, it hasn't been covered here, but if you go to our session on Sindh Sales Tax on Services Act, you will find the answer there. I'll give you a hint though, since you have come to today's session. You have to write to SRB. Amit Kumar, sir, I'm asking where we have to give details of branches. Amit Kumar, Amit's question was, can we give details of associate or parent here? Oh yes, Amit, in the drop-down menu that we showed you, you actually do select whether this is the parent, mean the head office, or it's a branch office. I'll quickly show you again. Let me show you. Here, in business/branch type, this drop-down menu will give you the option to select whether this is the head office or a branch office. So I hope that answers. Okay, and next one is Danish. Thank you very much. I got it now. You are most welcome, Danish. Glad we are of help. Muhammad Rafiq, which account should be used? Particulars, should it be where are making sales tax payment? I guess Muhammad Rafiq Saab is asking which account details to give and whether this should be the account from where we are making the sales tax payment and receiving. Yes, ideally it should be the account from where you are conducting your business transactions. Amit Kumar, thanks. You're welcome, Amit. Okay, so seems like we are doing pretty well and all the questions are answered. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask now. Break. Yeah, we'll have break in a few minutes. Just let's quickly answer some questions before we do. Sayyida Rabil Naqvi, would this seminar be available on ACCA Vimeo channel? Rabil, I can answer you right now, but what would be the fun in that, right? So this question I will answer, but at the end of the session. Next, any other question? Okay, I'll give you guys 30 seconds. Type the questions, if any. If not, then we'll move on. seems like there are no questions, so the time is about to end. Okay, so far so good. We have answered almost all the questions that you have asked till now. Still, if you have any questions, you can continue to write and we'll answer them in due time. For now, let's quickly have a break. In my clock, it's 11:18, would be 11:19 by the time I finish announcing break. So we'll have a quick 15, 20 minutes break. Okay, we'll be back at 11, 20 minutes, 39 sharp. So I'll see you all in 20 minutes and we'll have some poll questions for you too. So see you then. Take care, get fresh, be right back.
Okay, we are back. Hello, welcome, assalamu alaikum. I hope after the break you would all be charged up and ready to go. First things first, जो questions हमें आए हैं उनको answer कर लें. Recording available है इस webinar की. Is the recording available after this webinar? I would not answer this right now. I leave some excitement which I'll request to my coordinator here to till the end of this session. At the end of session, we will tell you the answer to this question. We have a member who said he wants to use a phone call for this webinar and wants to know whether there would be any mobile charges or it's free on phone too. Obviously, your network charges would apply and won't be very reasonable or logical to think and require ACCA to pay those charges, right? Can you do email as well for a class? Yes, you will be receiving an email of the attachments, the presentation handout. This SAF has already shared with you. How to file return after 6 months? I believe, are you asking for revising a return or that you just didn't file return for 6 months? Saab, can you just clarify? Okay, we also have a question by Faisal. Since sales tax is applicable on actuarial services, the scope of all the services covered and relevant taxes are available within the session we conducted on Sindh Sales Tax on Services Act, which is available on ACCA's channel. However, after this session, if we have time, you can ask this again and I'll answer you. Saad is not talking about revising, so about filing the. Saad, what will happen is that if you haven't filed your return for 6 months with Sindh Revenue Board, your registration would be suspended and you would be blacklisted and you would be sent a notice. Most likely you'll have to pay some penalty too. So you'll then approach your relevant commissioner, give your response, what happened. You will still need to file that return after activation, but meanwhile you'll have to pay the penalty charges, etc. And after you fulfill the requirement, your suspension would be lifted and blacklisting would be lifted and you'll file your return. So it's not a very ideal situation to not be filing your monthly sales tax returns for a gap of 6 months. I hope that answers the question. That's pretty much about it. All the relevant questions till now have been answered. Please keep them coming and we will continue to answer them, inshallah. Okay guys, let's continue where we left from. So we had discussed the registration in all 3 scenarios, whether you have NTN you don't or your NTN details are simply not appearing. We have discussed about e-enrollment, the theoretical feature of the new enrollment as well as the activation. Now we have done the initial basics complete. Let's proceed with the actual thick of things, the e-filing of the sales tax return. And during this session, we will also be covering the filing of a nil return as well as the revising of the sales tax return. And once we have done this, then we will have some quick poll questions for you, which will give us an indication of your understanding as well as participation in this session. So, first things first, how would you file your return? There are again 2 ways of reaching the same destination. You can come to the home page of Sindh Revenue Board, srb.gus.pk, abbreviations of Sindh Revenue Board, Government of Sindh and Pakistan. Click on your relevant link of e-services, which will bring you here, and you'll have to click on links gone there. Okay, you'll simply come here directly e.srb.us.pk, and here at the home page you'll have the login portal. In the login portal, the initial ID and password which you received in email as well as SMS will be entered. and you log in. Once you log in, you'll have a screen like this appearing in front of you, and on the top you'll have these various tabs: home, administration, registration, declaration. From the declaration drop-down menu in the sales tax, you'll click on sales tax on services return, and a form will appear. You have to fill the tabs which are applicable to you, and the form will be displayed in two sections. The first section is registry. Again, just like in the registration form, this section shows your registration particulars. It will show you your SNTN, your NTN, name, CNIC, etc. And this is pre-filled. You don't have to do anything here. But on the left-hand side, you'll have an area like this, the control area. From here in the monthly drop-down menu, you'll select the applicable period that is applicable to you. Then you'll click on the sales tax return if you have any tax payable. We also mentioned we'll be discussing the process for filing a nil sales tax return. It may be that you have no sales tax payable, in which case you'll simply click on file nil sales tax return, and it will bring you to the end process where you'll then verify, enter your CNIC, etc. and submit. That's it. Nothing complicated in filing a nil sales tax return. However, it may be that your sales tax return is not nil. You actually have business transaction and you have to account for that. In that case, you'll click on filing your sales tax return, and your relevant sales tax form will appear where you have to fill the relevant section. Again, the pattern is very similar to what we have seen in other provincial sales tax sessions, return sessions. The first section is sales tax credit. This section accumulates the input tax that you have paid. The details of the items would be given. The domestic purchases, including excluding in fact your fixed assets. Then you have imports. Then you have capital fixed assets, etc., etc. One word of caution here: all these areas appearing in yellow are frozen. You can't put any number in them. What you can do is you'll click on annexure, like annexure A here, and the annexure A for domestic purchases would open up. There you have the option to enter the detail of your transaction, the NTN number of the party you are dealing with, SNTN if applicable, or PNTN, their name, that would come up, the transaction amount, the applicable rate, what service the transaction was for, and or if it's a good, you just mentioned that, the rate that was applicable, the amount of tax that was withheld, etc. So you enter all these details for all the domestic purchases. Now, we have this, and I'll cover this in detail, but like I requested in the beginning of the session, if any of our members, particularly from Sindh, have any clients which they would like to share their details for the purpose of showing real time to our members how this actually works, it would be great. Otherwise, we can continue with these extracts, because our clients from Sindh unfortunately didn't give us permission to share them. And again, being bound by ACCA's code of ethics, you should only share the details if it's your personal and you have no objection, or if it's your clients and they are perfectly fine with it. Okay, we are getting messages that the computer screen is not working. Let me see quickly. You can't see slide. Okay. Seth, we are getting the messages that they cannot see the slides. Okay. I guess you guys should be able to see the screen and slides now. Let me know if you are able to. Can you see the slides now? Okay, great, fantastic. So sorted. Okay guys, so anyone want to share details of themselves or any of their clients from the province of Sindh? so I can show you the actual demo. Otherwise, we have these slides and the abstracts to take you through, but I would really like to show you actually how it's done. Yeah, anyone? Anyone? Come on, guys. There are so many members logged in. Yes, I will do that. That's the natural course of action. Let me just wait for a minute if anyone wants to share the details. Yeah, I'll repeat that. Okay, Sada has requested to repeat as the slides were missed. No problem, I'll repeat that. But just one last shout out. Anyone wants to share details of their clients who have authorized them, so I can actually show you in addition to going through these extracts. Okay, if there's anyone, please share the details. I'll just repeat so that those who have missed the slides previously can see them. Why is this altering? The audience view.
Yeah.
It was coming down to 70.
70%.
Yeah, it came down then went up. Now it's fine.
Yeah.
Must be a red tag. Okay. Okay, guys. Let's repeat. Okay. So these are the slides you missed. The e-filing of a sales tax return or nil or null sales tax return and revising of the sales tax return. First up, you'll go to the login page. Let me show you. This is the portal which you have previously seen. You'll come here. You have the login page, ID, password. The direct link is e.srb.us.pk. I'll show it again to you. You come on this link, and this is just our security. HTTPS, then e.srb.us.pk, and there you are. So you have to write an S after the HTTP because this is a secure server, an IT thing, don't worry about it. Then you enter the user ID and password and you click on the login button. Your user ID is your SNTN and the password is the one that's emailed and SMS to you. You click on login and you'll be inside the portal. So once you are inside the portal, you can continue the process. You'll have something like this appearing in front of you, the tabs. You'll go to the declaration for sales tax and click on sales tax on services return option. A form will appear. You have to fill this form, which is your relevant income sales tax return form, as applicable to you. Some sections will be, some sections might not be. You might not be doing exports, you might not be doing imports. What we mean by that when we refer to these, we'll see that in a bit. This form will be displayed in sections. The first section is Registry, which shows your registration particulars. Just like in the case of our initial registration application, this will be pre-filled and will be showing your particulars. So you basically don't have to do anything with this section. You'll move on to the left-hand side of the form, where you'll see the control panel showing a drop-down menu for the tax period. You'll select the relevant monthly period applicable to you and click on that. Now, one of the two things will happen. You either want to file a nil, which we refer to as technically null sales tax return, one and the same thing, or you actually have some transactions. Sorry about that. Or you have actually some transactions for which you want to file a complete sales tax return. So how we'll file the nil return? Let me repeat that after the proper return now. You'll click on this filing for the sales tax on services return. The relevant form will appear up. The first section of the form is sales tax credit section. Now, if you have previously attended the other session on provincial returns, the pro forma and pattern is quite similar. It is logically divided into effectively different sections, leading logically through to the conclusion, which is the net sales tax payable or refundable. The first section is sales tax credit, the credit that is being accrued to you. So first things first, what is that? The domestic purchases excluding your fixed assets. Now you might see annexure A being written here. You'll click on this annexure and a pop-up box will open up. It will take you effectively, depending on the browser you are using, it might just be the next page appearing instead of pop-up box. Normally that's the case. You will enter all the details of all domestic purchases that you have made. They may be exempt supplies, they may be zero rated, or they may be standard rated. So what you'll have here is you'll have to enter the relevant tax number of the party you are dealing with. Remember, if you are dealing with a party which is blacklisted, suspended, or non-registered, you have the complete liability. If you are still to deal with them, firstly, you should not deal with them. It's not very right. If for some reason, some problem and maybe you got a stay order or something, you are still dealing with them, in that case, you have to withhold the 100% of the sales tax because you would be ultimately responsible for that. But that is in those extreme cases. For a normal transaction, you will just enter the relevant tax number, the NTN, SNTN, the party name, then you enter the nature of the transaction, which service did you buy or which goods did you purchase domestically, what was the rate applicable, what was the transaction amount, and therefore the sales tax amount, and what was the amount of sales tax that was withheld from you by the supplier. So that can be accrued back in the adjustment calculations. So you'll enter all these details for all the parties and all the purchases. Once you have done that, you'll save the details and you come back to the return. You then move on to the second serial number 2, which deals with imports excluding fixed assets again. So the first one was domestic purchases, the second one is imports. Why they are appearing separately? There is a difference in treatment too. However, more importantly, not every business will have imports. Most of the SME sector is only dealing domestically. So if you don't have any imports, logical and common sense, just move ahead, leave this section blank. On the other hand, if you have imports, you'll click on annexure B, you'll fill out all the details of the imports. You'll have to enter details of your GD, the goods declaration that you have submitted with the customs. You'll list the items that were imported, the rates that were applicable, taxes already paid, etc., etc. You'll do that for all the import transactions that are being done within this particular period. You'll click on Save Done. You'll come back to the return. You might have noticed here that some of the fields are appearing yellow and some of the fields are white, and we'll see that more and more as we proceed. The yellow fields are automatically calculated. You cannot enter any number here. But you just said you have to enter the transactions for domestic purchases and imports. They are appearing yellow. Yes, That's why you have the annexures. You go in the annexures, you fill out all the details there, and this main screen fields automatically calculates the numbers, the totals from the annexures, and they appear here. You cannot amend them from here. If you want to amend them, you have to go back to annexure and modify the details there. Then you have your capital and fixed assets, if any. Then you have any other creditable inputs that are not covered within this. If that is the case, you just enter the number here. Rest of the fields will be automatically calculated, and it will bring you here. See, this is the annexure A that I told you about here. That you click on this, and in the annexure A, you have to enter all the details. Let me see if I can increase the size of this one for you. I think this should be more visible now. So, just like I told you, for every party, you'll have to enter all the relevant details. You'll enter their tax number, their CNIC number, their name, then the transaction type, whether this was a purchase invoice, whether this was some adjustment note, whatever the instrument was which you received. Normally, most of the cases, it's purchase invoice. Then you have to enter the purchase invoice number in the document reference. Then you have to enter the date in the format date, month, year. So if the transaction was to take place today, it would be 12/09/12/2017. Then you leave the NS code, that will be taken care of. Then you enter what did you purchase, whether they were goods. In this drop-down menu, you'll have the option of services or goods. As applicable, you'll select the relevant one. The rate applicable, drop-down menu will show you all the relevant rates. Let's assume 15% was applicable or whatever. You'll select that. You'll enter the value here. You'll enter the district where the transaction took place. For example, here, Badin is being selected. Then you'll enter the amount of GST that was withheld, and you'll click on add. That's one transaction. You'll do that for all the transactions, and that's it. Once you have added all these transactions, you'll click on back to the return, and you'll be taken back to the previous slide where we saw the initial return form. So you'll come back here, and now after you have filled this annexure A, you'll have the value and sales tax amount appearing here. Once you have done that, you can now proceed to imports. However, just a quick heads up, auto-generated summary will be given to you at the end of annexure A, showing status of suppliers as taxpayers. So you'll be able to see whether some of them are restricted, suspended, non-active, or if there is any problem. Why? Because it may be that you were not active enough to check their status beforehand. Normally you should when you are dealing with a party, because there are legal implications and there are financial costs involved if they are not active or suspended. However, so that you cannot give any excuse, and obviously to facilitate you at the end of this section, after you have inserted all these transactions using their NTN and their tax details, the system will automatically show you and categorize how many of your suppliers fall into which category. So that will give you a heads up to take precaution and withhold complete amount if a taxpayer is not registered or suspended. So same thing will happen with annexure B. We'll fill the annexure B. We have the capital of fixed assets. If they are purchased domestically or imported, doesn't matter. They'll both come together here. Then we have the non-creditable inputs, as I mentioned to you. So adding 1, 2, 3 and taking out 4 from them will bring us the figure for input tax for this month, the period under consideration. Then if we have any credit carried forward from the previous tax periods, maybe we had an excess of sales tax credit in the last tax period, and that was carried forward, it would automatically appear here. And if if there is any tax withheld by the buyer as a withholding agent, it would appear here. Why? Because we have provided their details in Annexure A, right? So they'll come in serial number 7. Then the accumulated credit, which is the sum of the input tax for the month and any tax credit from previous periods added onto it, and any tax withheld by the buyer as a withholding agent adding onto it, will result in the cumulative credit figure. So let's continue. Okay, this is the import section, excluding fixed assets, but including value addition taxes on commercial imports. If we have imports as inputs, we have to click on Annexure B. This is the main return. We saw Annexure B for imports. We click on Annexure B. We'll come here. I'll enlarge this too so you are better able to see this. Okay, I think this is mistakenly been pasted Annexure A again, but in Annexure B it's quite similar. What they do is you have to enter your GD detail. For those of you who are familiar, no issue. For those who are not, it's your good declaration. Whenever you import stuff into the country, you have to officially give a good declaration to the customs, which is then checked again, and you are supposed to give correct declaration, their valuation, etc., etc. So you enter all those details in Annexure B and the relevant applicable taxes that have already been deducted. Same process, you click on the add button for all of them, you do that, and then you come back to the main screen. And then you have the capital fixed assets, domestic purchases and imports, where you enter the purchases of capital and fixed assets. We have discussed this, okay, but I'll still run you through. This is basically the material from SRB's presentation and support material. So then you have next up non-creditable inputs. What can they be? What can be the inputs which are not creditable? Think. Well, it's on your screen. Come on, guys. It could be that you import, you have inputs, imports, or domestic purchases of exempt items. And we all know the treatment of exempt items. What is the difference between exempt and zero rated? Zero rated, although there is no tax applicable there, but is taken into consideration while computing the overall tax liability. On the other hand, the exempt is taken out of the ambit of the creditable inputs. So non-tax supplies, rendering of, and even rendering of services and services provided in other jurisdiction, and text there should be filed in the return for that jurisdiction. They would not be creditable input for SRB. And then it brings us to the input tax for the month, for which the formula is adding 1, 2, 3 and taking off 4. Just like we discussed in the original return, I'll show you again. Here it is. I'll enlarge it so you can see it clearly. So you add 1, 2, 3 and take off 4. 1 is domestic purchases excluding fixed assets. 2 is imports excluding fixed assets, but includes any value addition taxes on imports. 3 is capital or fixed assets, and then you take off non-creditable inputs from there. So far so good. Before we carry on, if you have any questions or confusions till now, please ask now. Now is the time. You can ask now, guys. Okay, so awesome that you have no questions. This means I'm really conducting it really good. Great, wonderful. You can still write your questions, but now that I'm doing so well, what I'm going to do is ask you to answer a poll question on your screens. So the poll question will be related to something that we have already covered. Okay, it will be appearing on your screens now, and you'll have how much time?
2 minutes.
You'll have 2 minutes to answer that. Go ahead. So the question is, can a registration application be revised after submission? Your answer is a straightforward yes or no. So if you have to amend this word in both. Okay. We have the votes coming in. Very good. The good thing is almost 80% of you are replying correctly. Again, the question is, can a registration application be revised after submission? Come on, keep answering, keep answering, keep answering. And you have to be very careful. In answering the question. Just focus on the words. Can a registration application be revised after submission? Actually, the kind of results we are getting interesting in terms of the proportion voting, but now the correct answer proportion is seriously reversed. Okay, keep voting, keep voting. You have last 10 seconds. Okay, guys, that's it. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Sure. Okay. So you have the poll results in front of you. The question was, can a registration application be revised after submission? 77% answered yes and 23% answered no. Well, a registration application can be amended for after submission by applying to SRB. It cannot be revised after submission. Remember, we discussed you have the chance to amend the return after you have saved, make the changes and save them. You have the chance to even revise after verifying. You have to unverify and make the changes. But once you have submitted, you cannot amend that very registration application. There you go. Sometime you have to be wide awake and pay attention to the keywords. Yes, if you know the process later on, you can go to SRB. We have different registration, particular, maybe a new branch open up after we have completed registration and the details are amended by SRB. That's a different process. This very return that you are submitting, that cannot be revised after you have submitted. So unfortunately, 77% did not answer right, and well done to the 20% who answered no. You're right this time. And we have some questions too. Good. Let's quickly answer them and we'll then continue on the return because we are going very well on the schedule. Okay, we have a question by Rana Ali Arsalan Khan. Sir, can you please tell me what is different between sales tax and VAT? Good questions. Sales tax and VAT are very similar. In sales tax, actually, there's an element of duplicity with regard to taxation. In VAT, it is effectively very similar to the sales tax we have here. But the concept is that the tax is on the phases of value addition in the process chain. But both are indirect taxes, both are ad valorem taxes, both are applied to goods and services. And our sales tax is basically based on the VAT model. So it's very similar. Moiz Ahmed, do we file sales tax on outputs here? Moiz, what do you mean by do we file sales tax on outputs here? I guess Moiz might be referring to the sales tax return. Yes, Moiz, we will, as we'll see in a bit. Right now, we were just going through the first section where we have dealt with the inputs, the sales tax credit. Then we'll deal with the outputs, the debit side. And then we'll go through the rest of the adjustment, which will culminate in the finalizing of the sales tax return. Okay, we have Danish Ali Malik asking, Assalamu alaikum, could you kindly tell, is local transportation exempt in SRB tax services? Danish, go to our session on Sindh Sales Tax on Services Act. Muhammad Rafiq, if supplies taxed in other countries can be obtained tax credit in Pakistan, if any? Rafiq, our provincial authorities are starting to build mechanisms for double taxation treaty. If there is any country which has a double taxation treaty with the state at federation level, that will apply to the provincial level. But having said that, at the moment, there has been no major case of claiming any material tax exemption or tax credit, as per your question, with regard to, excuse me, the services provided in another country. Yeah, kindly bring some tea. Next, Danish Ali. In fact, Muhammad Rafiq has another question. Exempt supplies which are purchased from other countries and taxed but in exempt list. What do you mean? I suppose you are asking that if there are exempt supplies which are purchased from other country and taxed there but are in our exempt list, do we get tax credit for that? No, we do not. They don't even allow you to claim tax credit for the services you have supplied in another province, and you are wishing to take tax credit on exempt items that you have purchased from abroad. No, it doesn't matter that. It doesn't happen that way. It might happen in future, but not right now. Thank you. Okay, next up, Rana Ali Arsalan Khan. Are rates for VAT and sales tax different? Yeah, they are different. Which VAT are you referring to? Are you referring to the import duties? Yes, they are different. Are you referring to international VAT? Yes, they are different. Even most of the sales tax rates in different provinces are different. The standard rate in Sindh is different than the standard rate in Punjab. Danish Ali's answer. Also, what about nationwide transportation? Again, Danish, our session on Sindh Sales Tax on Services Act, not relevant to today's session. As there is an appearance SRO for oil tankers, yes, there is an intercity transportation. Okay, Danish, need your expert advice. Thank you. You're asking so nicely. After the session is ended, if we have time, do come back with this question and I'll help you. But get into the habit of going through the sessions. We put in a lot of effort and they are available free of cost on Pioneer. So why not? Go through them. Rana Arsalan Ali Khan, can we file return at FPR website with regard to SRB? No, you cannot. At the moment, SRB's return can only be filed at SRB's website, and not just SRB, all the provincial revenue authorities' returns have to be filed using the portal on their own websites. They cannot be filed through FPR's website. However, there is now some discussion, and it's still in very initial phases, of building a joint portal where a taxpayer can file just one return, and every authority will basically be getting the relevant bits of information, the transactions that come within their ambit. But it's still a vision and it's still in preliminary discussion. So right now you have to file the Sindh Revenue Board's sales tax on services return using its own portal on its website. Thank you, Danish Ali Malik, you are most welcome. Rana Ali Aslan Khan, thank you, you are most welcome. Amit Kumar, where I can find sales tax rates of previous years, that is tax card of previous years. Amit, during the session I showed the relevant legislations, so you can go through them, and every year's Finance Act outlines the changes in the rates, and every year's updated Sales Tax on Services Act, they outline the relevant rates. Rana Ali Arsalan Khan, thank you. You are welcome. So we are done with the question. I think I've answered all of them. If any question is left, because there were quite a few coming in together, just raise the flag. I'll be happy to answer that again. Try to answer the relevant questions. If we have some time at the end of the session, we'll go through the other questions that you may have. So now let's go back. And meanwhile, if you have any questions, please keep them coming. So we were discussing about the input tax for the month formula. We have gone through that. Next up, credit carried forward from previous tax years, tax periods monthly. Determined by the department where applicable, yeah, and that would be entered. We have discussed that. Then sales tax withheld by the buyer as a withholding agent. This would be taken from the Annexure A and Annexure B details that you have submitted. Accumulated credit in serial number 8, the formalized 5, 6, and 7 are added. This I've already shown you, but okay, I'll quickly re-show you. This is what we did here. So accumulated credit, serial number 8, which we discussed, is a culmination of adding up serial number 5, the input tax for the month, serial number 6, the credit carried forward from previous tax period, and 7, the tax withheld by the buyer as a withholding agent. So accumulated credit is done. This will bring us up to the next section, which one of you was asking about. The sales tax debits, the other side. This was the credit, the purchase side. Now the debits on the sales side. So this section will calculate the total output tax for the period. Details of each item is given below. Let me enlarge this for you too. Here you can see, I think you can see this very clearly. Thank you. Serial number 9 is the services provided or rendered. Again, you can see the relevant fields are yellow, which means you cannot fill them up. So how do you fill them up? You'll click on Annexure C, and we'll see in a bit what you'll do. Okay, you can see the pattern is very similar. Here, after initial outlining of services provided rendered, then you have the Annexure D for services exported. It's very similar to the first section that we saw in terms of the inputs. In the inputs, you first had the domestic purchases, then the imports. In the output, you first have the domestic services provided and rendered, and then any services that you may have exported. And 9 and 10 are added up for the total output tax for the month. So, Annexure C. Let's see the Annexure C and D, which we have seen are serial number 9 and 10. So when you click on Annexure C and D, Both these annexures will open up one by one, and let me show you what we'll do here. Annexure C obviously is about domestic sales, so you have to enter the particulars in this annexure. Let me enlarge it a bit so you can see more clearly. You have to select the type of the document. Did you issue a sale invoice? Normally it's the sales invoice or anything else. You have to enter the NTN, the CNIC, the name of the party, well, what was the transaction for, whether it was a goods service, whether it was a service or a telecommunication thing we did, or maybe the hotel industry, whatever it was, the applicable rate that was applied, any tax that you withheld in this case, the value of the transaction, etc., etc. After you have done that, you'll click on this Add tab, and you'll repeat this process for all the sales transactions you have done. Once you have completed that, you'll click on Back to the Return button, and you'll be taken back to your original sales tax return. One word of caution though. What if while entering the details you make some mistake? What can you do? Anyone? I'm sure some of you would have filed the returns. So what would you do if you make some returns? If you make some error in the return while filling up annexure C? Come on, guys. Amend it, Sidra. Very good, obviously. But how would you amend it, Sidra? Other participants, hundreds, other than Sidra, can also answer. And you know what? If your answer is not correct, I wouldn't even take your name. So you have nothing to worry about. Edit the invoice or simply delete it and add it again. Absolutely correct. Talal Hassan. Thank you, Talal. Well done. So you can either simply change the field you made a mistake in by selecting that particular area, or if the transaction is already added, you click on the transaction, edit it or delete it. Well done, guys. Next, section relating to services exported, annexure D. Here you'll enter the particulars of export made during the period, and again, just like in the case of imports, here you'll also select the system, whether it was one customs, VBOC, etc., the collectorate applicable to you, Karachi or whatever it is, the GD type, the GD number, GD date, export value, value of goods and services. If it was a short shipment, the value of short shipment, value of goods or services admissible, etc., etc. So basically you are giving out all the details as per the GD, and then you click on the Add button. And again, you'll repeat this process for all the export transactions that you have undertaken during a period, and after you have completed, you'll click on the Back to the Return button, and it will take you back to the return. And by the way, let me show you this too. At the end of annexure D, you can see you'll have this breakdown of all the details that you have entered, that how many of the transactions of export related to the goods or the services, their relevant values, any short shipment, etc. Basically a summary of what you have submitted. Why the summary is relevant? You might be thinking of a small client, 5 transactions, no issue. What's the big deal of the summary? Think about a larger client, 500 transactions, 1,000 transactions. Now that's helpful, isn't it? There you go. Okay, this brings us back to where we were. Next up, you'll have the total output tax for the month, which is serial number 9, which is simply the addition of serial number 7 and 8, which are the total domestic services that you have provided and rendered, the relevant tax on that, the total export of services, taxable services that you have rendered, and the total of relevant amount and taxes for that. This will bring us to one of the final sections of the return. Now see, it's proceeding very logically. The first section dealt with the input tax credit, the purchases, the imports, capital assets, any credit carried forward, total input credit, etc., etc. The second section dealt with the output credit, the sales you made domestically, the exports you made, relevant details from the GD, you entered them in the annexure, and the field, by the way, appeared directly from the annexure. The totals will appear from the information you have provided from the annexure, and the system automatically calculates that. Now, logically, the next step is to go for the determination of tax liability. So here, in serial number 12, you have input for the month admissible under the rules. From the information provided, it will be computed. The available balance, either credit or debit, which means payable to the treasury or payable to you, would be computed. Then you have the option whether you want to carry forward the input of capital fixed assets declared at the serial above. Remember, after the imports, we declared inputs of capital and fixed asset. Do you want to carry forward? You click yes. If you don't, no. Fair enough. That's your business decision whether you want it to accrue in this month or carry forward. You'll do accordingly. Then in serial number 15, you have sales tax payable. When you have sales tax payable, come on guys, it's not so hard. If your input is less than your output, if your sales are more than your purchases, which they normally are, and the relevant tax on output is more than on input, you have a tax liability payable. If, however, for some reason your sales were maybe you had a business hit, maybe your market shrank, whatever the reason, you grew, you made some investment, your input on the purchase side was more than your output on the sales side, then you would have a refund due to you. So refund claim on capital fixed asset, if serial number 4 was no, then minimum of fixed assets available, and otherwise, okay, this is basically tied up with what we agreed here, whether we want to carry forward the input on capital or fixed assets or not, which brings us to the credit to be carried forward. All these will be automatically calculated. The end of the year refund claim, if any, net credit carried forward, fine, penalty, additional default surcharges, depending on if we file some returns late, etc. Then if we have any additional tax for some reason, we can enter that here. If we have a default surcharge, we enter it here. And if we have a penalty or fine, why? Maybe we filed the return late. As one of you said, didn't file for 6 months, got suspended and blacklisted, had a heavy fine, that would come up here. So once these things are entered, serial number 20 will be automatically computed as a sum of these 3, 21, 22, and 23. Then we'll have the total amount to be paid, which is the net tax liability we have. Any adjustments are taken out, and then any penalties, default surcharges are added onto it. And again, this is automatically calculated by the system. Then tax paid on normal and previous return. For a first time new return, you leave that blank. Why this is relevant, I'll show you in a bit, and where it is relevant. For a first time return, leave that at 0. The balance tax payable or adjustable, if you have overpaid already, would automatically be collected. You'll select your account theoretically for receiving the refund, and you'll proceed. Again, these things that we have discussed are covered by SRB. As we have seen, input for the month admissible under the rule is serial number 1, which shows accumulated tax credit admitted during the period. Then we have available balance debit or credit, which basically is the output admissible during the period withheld by the buyer. It is automatically calculated and shows the net tax position, whether payable to the treasury or refundable to you. Then you have the option, which we discussed, to carry forward the inputs of capital or fixed asset declared at serial 3. The rules have given option to taxpayer to claim adjustment of that and carry forward it to adjust in future period if they so wish. Then we have the sales tax formula. The formula for this is shown, how it is computed by the return, so you are aware what is happening. Then we have the refund claim on capital or fixed assets. If the taxpayer want to claim the refund, then that amount or the net amount refund of input, whichever is minimum, will be refunded and automatically calculated theoretically. Credit to be carried forward is given there. End of year refund claim, auto-generated amount, show your refund if any at the end of the year. Then net credit is taken forward. This is all basically theoretical coverage of what I've shown you and we have covered. Then it brings us to this last bank thing, and then this is it. So we have selected the bank account details if applicable. Then we go with the headwise payable. This is the last section of the form and requires payment receipt numbers and shows a summary of the headwise payment. You have to attach the CPR of the tax payment that you have made. You cannot submit your sales tax return unless you have made the payment of the sales tax liability as we discussed initially. We will cover in ancillary issues how you can make the sales tax payment, so don't worry about that for now. You'll then click on the save button. After you have saved the return, again you'll click on verify. The same process we did in the initial registration. So in the verification, you'll enter your relevant detail, click on confirm, then you'll have this button of submit getting unfrozen. So you'll click on submit and your return will be submitted. That's it. After you have submitted your return, then you have the option to revise if you want to by clicking on the revise button. You can then print the return by clicking on the print return, which is very important to keep it for your records, so that in future if you have to refer back to it for any reason, you can always do that. Always remember to print the acknowledgement, and do remember that these are two very different things. The acknowledgement is simply confirming you that you did submit the return for the period. On the other hand, the printout of the return actually confirms what the return was that you submitted. So it's always a good idea to print both the acknowledgement and the return. With regard to the e-payment and the CPR, CPR is basically the abbreviation of computerized payment receipt. We commonly refer to this in practice as the challan or bank challan, same thing. If there's some amount in the net tax payable field, you will need to pay this amount before submitting your return, as I've shared with you. There are two ways to make the payment against the return. The number one is e-payment. If there is some net tax liability payable, the e-payment button will be enabled. You click the button and follow the instruction to create e-payment. A PSID, the payment slip ID, is generated by the system. You take this print out of this PSID to the bank and make payment against it. The CPR will be issued by the bank against the payment. Until the payment is cleared by the bank, all the buttons would remain disabled except the print return button. Once the payment is cleared, the button for enter CPR will become activated and you'll enter the CPR, and then after you have entered the CPR button, you will be able to submit your return. Verify obviously before submitting. Manual payment method is that you pay the net tax payable amount in the bank against your income tax return. A CPR will be issued by the bank against the payment. Hardly anyone goes for this obsolete method, so practically the e-payment method is how it works now. So I did mention to you about filing a nil return and a revised return. So what do we do in case of a nil return? not very difficult or different at all. We go through the same process in the declaration. We select the sales tax on services return, then we select the relevant period. Instead of filing for a full return, we click on filing the nil return. This basically brings us to this end area here. And now the buttons are activated because there is no tax liability to pay. There is no CPR to be generated and paid at a bank. So what we do instead is we click on save, we click on verify, we verify by providing our detail, confirm it, we click on submit, we submit it, done. That's all there is to the nil return. Then we print the acknowledgement and we print the return. The return is simply 0. It says that this is a null return. There are no taxable transactions in the period, so it's null. You keep the record safe for future references, and that's it. The null return is gone. Extremely simple. How about filing a revised return? That is interesting. It is, but before I go into filing a revised return, let us quickly have a poll question, and after that I'll have your questions. Okay, the question that will be shown in your screen in about 10 seconds is, do you need a new e-enrollment or activation after completing your registration? So you have to select whether you need the new e-enrollment or activation of e-enrollment after registration of your application. Try not to cheat by scrolling up the presentation. Just go with the flow, whatever you think. You'll have 2 minutes for that. Your time starts now. Keep voting, guys. This shows us how active you are. And Mr. Harun Jan, the regional head of member affairs, has actually shared that the CPT certificates that you receive would depend on how active you were during your participation. It doesn't matter whether you are answering right or wrong, because that is the purpose, to see if you have missed some points so we can clarify it more and how attentive you are. But your CPT certificate would depend on how actively you participated. So I suggest you answer the poll questions. There is no penalty, you won't be penalized for answering wrong, and there's a 50-50 chance anyway. So just give it a shot. Okay, you have about 50 seconds remaining. Last 20 seconds. Come on, guys, just answer it. It doesn't matter right or wrong. Okay, the time's up, and I'll be sharing the results with you all. The question was whether you need a new e-enrollment or an activation of e-enrollment after your initial registration application. 34% of you replied new, and 66% replied activation. The correct answer is activation. So the majority actually is right in this instance. After you have completed registration, now you simply activate your e-enrollment because you already have an ID with the FPR portal. So for the 34% who Got it wrong, no problem. You at least tried, and now a concept is clarified to you. We do have some questions. If you have questions, please let them come. Meanwhile, I'll answer these that I have. Rana Ali Arsalan, Talal, Sidra, and Amit replied to the last question I asked. Moiz also. Amit Kumar said output is greater than input. That is payable. Okay, that was the answer to my question. Thank you, Amit. I saw this just now. Muhammad Rafiq asked, if one organization is not liable to be registered for sales tax, but have sales tax transactions, should it file the return? Now, first thing, Muhammad Rafiq Saab, please give me the scenario where an organization is not liable to be registered but have sales tax transactions. Secondly, sales tax applicability on non-profit organization. Normally, Muhammad Rafiq Saab, even if we theoretically take the scenario where there is an organization which is not liable to be registered but have sales tax transactions, by which I suppose that it is involved in either providing or purchasing or both taxable services. In such an instance, it would be in the benefit of the party, both from a tax perspective and even from a business perspective, to be registered. How? Because if it's not registered, the tax rate applicable would be higher. The counterparty will have to withhold 100% and may not even do the business if they are a registered taxpayer and there is no exceptional circumstances there. On the other hand, if it's registered, it is able to claim credit for the input that it's been paying on the services it is purchasing. So both from a tax as well as a business perspective, in normal circumstances, it would be advisable to be tax registered if it has taxable transactions. Now, secondly, sorry about that, I'm just having a sore throat since yesterday. Secondly, sales tax applicability on non-profit organization. Please write the questions clearly when you are asking something. Right now, I'm supposing that you meant whether sales tax on services is applicable on non-profit organizations. There is nothing saying that it is not. If a non-profit organization is running one of the relevant taxable supplies, for example, a non-profit organization is running a hotel which is non-profit for less privileged. It does not mean these services are exempt unless stated specifically. It may be that the non-profit is running supplies which are not taxable. That's a different scenario. Remember what the non-profit is. It's not earning profits. So the income tax that is on profits is not applicable to it. But even for that, there is a certain process it has to go through. The sales tax is an indirect tax on transaction which is passed on to the end consumer. So if it is just making a taxable transaction, it is not bearing the burden. It is passing that on through the supply chain. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, any other questions? Normally when I ask any other question, no question comes. But when I'm about to start the presentation again, a question comes. Or later on I see in the screen that after I have started the presentation, the questions came. Why don't you just write the question beforehand? It would save us both time. Okay, we do have another from Faisal Yusuf. Is SST applicable on actuarial services? PRA has made it taxable, but I'm not sure for Sindh. Well, Faisal, I think Sindh made an amendment to cover it. You can go through the section on Sindh Sales Tax on Services Act, which outlines this in detail. However, at the end of the session, if we have time, come back to me and I'll discuss this in detail. And maybe I'll even show you the relevant part of the act. So that's it. I think the questions are covered. So we have one more poll question. I think I'll ask that after finishing the presentation, so we can just continue. Okay, any other questions? Please write them down and I'll be more than happy to answer them. No question is a stupid question. Even if it's a repetitive question, no problem, you can ask them. Okay, so what we did was we were discussing about filing a revised return. We have covered filing the initial sales tax return and filing the null return. Now, how about filing a revised return? Why would you need to file a revised return? It might be that after filing you realized there was an error, or it might be that after filing some new information came to your knowledge. The client didn't share some of the invoices initially, or maybe the staff just missed on them. Could be any reason. You need to revise the return. What do you do then? In that case, what do you do is, here at the bottom, I'll enlarge this for you so that you are able to see. I hope they are readable. You can read these: null, verify, save, delete, submit, print, print acknowledgement. Okay, not very readable. Anyway, what you do is that you click on the revise button. If the period has been long, you will need to apply to Sindh Revenue Board. The same return would open, it would be unfreezed, and what you need to do is just go to the relevant area you want to amend. Maybe you just want to amend Annexure C. Go to Annexure C, delete what you want to delete, add what you want to add, whatever. Maybe you want to amend Annexure A, amend the Annexure A, delete, add, amend, do as you want to do. Once you have made the relevant adjustments you wanted to, maybe Annexure C, some services provided were missed, go into Annexure C, amend them, add the details, or maybe you duplicate it, delete a duplicate, whatever it is. Same for Annexure D. Make the changes that you wanted to. Then everything else is similar. Make any changes you need to. The only major difference that would come after the changes are made, and in addition to them, are serial number 25, which I told you was not applicable when we were filing the return first time. This is tax paid on normal previous return, applicable in case of amended return. What happens now is, when you file your initial return, you calculated a tax liability. And before submitting the return, you actually had to pay that liability. You printed out your PSID, you took that to the bank, you paid, you had the challan appearing in the system, attached that, and you submitted your sales tax return. Now, that is gone to Treasury. You made an amendment. One of the three things happened. Either your liability increased than was previously shown, or your liability overall remained the same. Maybe there was an adjustment both on the input as well as the output side. Or the third scenario, your tax liability actually reduced than was previously the case before you amended. So in all three scenarios, you will fill out this field by entering the amount of the tax liability that you have already paid when you submitted the original return. Again, this is a white field, and we do remember that we have to enter the data in the white field. The yellow fields are automatically computed. Okay, once you have submitted that, the system would automatically adjust and compute the balance of the tax payable or accrued back to you. So if the first scenario is applicable, that your tax liability is still a bit more than you previously paid, then you'll simply repeat the process. Again, print out the PSID, again, take it to the bank, make only the additional payment, the difference. The payment that you previously made is already accounted for. This difference of the payment would be paid into the bank. Again, you'll come back, this new challan would be appearing in the system. You'll attach that with this amended return, submit, gone, no problem. Second scenario, there was adjustment both on the output and input side. The overall tax liability stays the same. You enter the figure here, balance tax payable would be computed, which would be the same amount as the original return because the net impact was the same. And you will simply move on to verifying and submitting return because the previous CPR would already be in the system and there is no additional payment to make. Number 3, the interesting one. Your tax liability actually is lower than it was before. What do you do now? You will still enter the figure here. The system will compute the balance of the tax, which is now refundable, or the more practical term is creditable to you. Now, in this instance, you have no additional tax to pay. Practically, you are not being issued refunds, so there is no point going here. You will simply verify and submit it, and in the next period, when you'll file your tax return, you will have credits carried forward from the previous tax period to take advantage of in the next tax period. Simple as that. Nothing complicated about it. So now we have gone through the basic discussion on taxation and its bifurcation. We have covered the history, development, and scope of sales tax in Pakistan. We have covered the origin and sphere of Sindh Sales Tax on Services Act briefly. We have covered the different legislations that govern it. We have also shared with you the tax period card, and we have also shared with you the SRB contact details of all 3 offices in the Sindh province. We have also discussed the registration process in case it's a new registration with NTN, in case it's a new registration with NTN but no record found, and in case there is no NTN. We have also discussed about the enrollment in both the scenarios, new, which practically is not there anymore, and the activation, which is the order of the day. We have discussed about filing the returns, revising and filing a new return. Now some practical ancillary issues. First things first. How do you make the payment? All this detail is available on the website and the portal of Sindh Revenue Board. You just click on this link and you can go. You can also download the PDF if you want to. So we are directly sharing the link with you. So how do you do it? Again, you go to the page which we have shown you already. You have the login details here. You enter your user ID and password which you got on your successful e-enrollment. You log into the system. Okay guys, just hang on for a second. I'll be right back. Keep on looking at the screen.
Yes, sir.
Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so I was showing you how the payments would be made. So this is the homepage of the portal, Sindh Revenue Board Taxpayer Facilitation Portal. You'll log in with the ID and password provided to you upon registration and enrollment. You log into the system after providing the ID password. Once you have logged into the system, you'll select the e-payment for sales tax on services. You'll enter the relevant tax numbers to retrieve the taxpayer data. You'll select the tax period from the left control panel. Then you'll have this created in front of you. You'll then click on sales tax link under the payment slip. You'll use this to create this payment slip. You'll enter the relevant amount. Here you have different heads. Sales tax on services collected on behalf of provincial government, sales tax. After adding the relevant amount, you'll select the payment mode, whether you want to pay by check, pay order, bank, city, branch, etc. If you want to make payments to more than one instrument, you'll bifurcate and mention, for example, I want to pay this particular amount, 7,750 by pay order, 1,500 by submitting in a bank, etc. Then you'll press the create button to create payment. You can edit the payment by going back and editing it, or you can simply cancel it. Once you'll click on create, it will ask you to confirm. You can confirm this, and then something like this will come up, which is your PSID. You'll take the printout to your bank, and the PSID, as you can see, will show your details, your name, your address, the NTN number, the tax period, the amount. In this instance, there was a sales tax liability of 150,000 only. How you are paying? In this instance, we selected check. Name of the depositor, the same as the taxpayer. That's it. Ideally, you should go for a payment via bank if that's convenient. The reason being that this PSID has to be deposited at specific branches of National Bank. The list is also given. Unless the liability that is due to you, the payment for that liability is clear and appearing in the system, you cannot submit your return. That's why most businesses prefer to submit it straight away in the bank, because it just clears the lags and the delays. These are the list of operational branches in Sindh, the National Bank branches, where these payments can be made. Most of them are based in Karachi, but there are quite a few in Zaheer. We have some in Hyderabad too, I think. Yeah. So the one here, Fatima Jinnah Road branch in Hyderabad. So you can make a payment in any of these branches. Obviously, you can select other modes if you want to. So that is a standard system of creating PSID and making your bank payment. However, you can also do that through your return. You have an option of generating these challan and e-payments within your return system. So why did I show you this system? This is because if you want to create a payment challan later on, maybe you saved, you logged out, or you have some junior staff you are training, or you want to generate an additional PSID later on, or something like that. There's also this process that you should be aware of. The end result is the same. Effectively, just like the process in registration and for filing return, there are different links taking you to the same destination. So it does not matter you are going through this link or this link, as long as you are ending at the same end result. So this is the way we will make payment. Yeah. And then we can now discuss some of the ancillary issues. But before that, I'll give you a quiz question. Okay, namaz break. 10 minutes? It's 1:15. Okay, the Jamaat is normally around 1:30, right?
Yeah.
So I think let's do a poll question, then we'll take a 15 minutes break for the prayer. We are on track, then we'll come back and we'll finish it off. We only have just few points left to cover. So guys, you'll have the polls question coming up on your screen. The poll question is which fields you have to fill in a STR. STR being the abbreviation of sales tax return. Do not worry, you won't have a lot to worry about. You won't have the entire return. You have just two options to choose from, white fields or yellow fields. We have covered that repetitively. So you better answer that and don't answer that wrongly. I'm about to launch this poll and you'll be able to see that on your screen. Just a word of caution. Your CPD certificates would depend on how actively you are answering in these poll questions. Because not only do they help us to assess if you are missing a technical point so we can focus on it again, it also shows how active you were. And it would be unjust to keep at par those participants who are attending the entire session very actively and those who are not very active after logging into the session. Because the purpose is your professional development. With that, you'll have 2 minutes for this too, and this is being launched now. Your time starts now. Okay guys, last 1 minute remains. Come on, vote, vote, vote. You don't want your effort to be wasted. You do want your CPD certificates, right? Come on. Interesting. Wake up guys, after this you have your break. So you can rest or pray or whatever you prefer. Just answer this one. Come on. Last 30 seconds. Although we do have the highest proportion of today's poll voting till now. But this is still low. I mean, we used to have sessions in last year and the voting proportion would be very high. But that time, the rule that Harun Sahib has said today was very active. The CPD certificate would only go for those attendees who were active in the poll questions. Okay, the time's up. I'm giving you 30 seconds more, so more of you can get your CPD certificates. Don't miss out on this one. You just have to select one option. What can go wrong? A wrong answer, you are not penalized for that. Come on, do it. You can do it. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Good. Come on. Last 3 seconds. And time's up. So I'm sharing the poll results with you. The question was, which fields did you have to fill in the sales tax return? Option A was white and option B was yellow. 77% answer option A, 23% answered option B. The majority is right. You have to fill the white fields. I have repetitively told you that the yellow fields are automatically calculated. You do not fill or omit those. So well done to all of you for answering, and fantastic to the one who selected option A. Those who selected option B, better luck next time. We do have some questions, but I think you can write the question and I'll answer them after the prayer break. It's 1:19. We'll have a 15-minute prayer break, and we'll be back on 1:34 sharp. So I'll see you guys in 15 minutes. Okay guys, hello, welcome, अस्सलाम वालेकुम. I hope आप सारे नमाज से फारिग हो चुके हैं और fresh हैं. Last part of today's session, we will finish today's presentation with some of the ancillary issues and any questions you have. There were two questions before we left by Omer and Talal Hassan. I'll first answer them and then we'll continue. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, please write them. Inshallah, I'll try my best to answer them before we leave. What to do when the party has withheld the sales tax from my invoice and I claimed it in the return, but subsequently it was disallowed by portal since the party did not deposit with SRB. Also reminded the party but to no avail. Well, Umar, unfortunately there's not much you can do here because as per the law, if the party hasn't deposited with sales, the sales tax they withheld from your invoice with SRB, then it's not a valid transaction. What you can do though is, it depends on how material the amount was. If the amount was really material and worth it for you, you can go in a writ petition, excuse me, at Sindh High Court. There is a particular technical clause. I'll be sharing my contact details at the end. If you are interested in that, please let me know and I'll guide you. But that's very specific, so I'll do that on one-on-one basis. Talal Hassan. Many times clients provided branch is not listed in Challan preparation window. Excuse me. Will it affect if we select any random branch of that particular bank? Okay, normally the branches they have provided you are the authorized one and their systems are directly linked, so it speed up the process. It might be ideal that you educate your client that, okay sir, instead of this is the next nearest branch to you and this is connected with the system, so kindly avail that. If the client insists on using another branch or another medium, even checkbook, etc., you have to fulfill their wishes, but you must educate them of the consequences in terms of delay, etc. Ideally, once you have told the client, nobody is really so less intelligent that they are unable to see their own benefit and their business benefit. So we have experienced this, that when our clients make such demands and we educate them about the implication, almost always, not even more often than not, almost always, they agree. So I hope this answers. Anybody else? Thank you. You are welcome. If you have any other questions, please write them down. We'll just finish off the sessions and I'll again come back to the remaining questions. Meanwhile, just a quick word for those who were asking. Saif has updated the presentation handout in the handout section, and rest of the links I've shown you are available on SRB website. So we have taught you how to catch the fish. Okay, so the ancillary issues. First thing, the browser issues. SRB's portal does work with almost all the browsers. However, we have found this to be more effective with Internet Explorer and Google Chrome. So use the latest version of these for best results. There are some dead links. So if you find any, don't worry, it's just because they have been so busy that they forgot to update and some links are simply broken. So you can be a good citizen and report it to them. For example, this new enrollment doesn't exist, see, nothing happening. Activation, that works, will take you here. So these things are there. Then not very related directly to the topic we covered today, but related to the process. So you have this appellate tribunal. By the way, Sindh Revenue Board was also, if I remember correctly, the first one to launch the appellate tribunal among all the provincial bodies. So they have really been taking the lead and should be appreciated per se. You have the relevant laws, regulations, if you want to go in the appeal process. You have detail of the chairman and members. Here you do all the relevant details. Then you also have the orders authored by the chairman, which serve as the case laws. You have the cost lists, etc. So this is a useful link. I also suggest that you keep on checking these links, especially the SRB updates. You get to know the new communications, circulars, updates coming in. For example, here you can see the working tariff on Sindh sales tax on services, which has been amended up to 4th of December 2017. Then you have new Sindh sales tax on insurance services, collection targets, meeting on harmonization of agricultural income tax in the provinces, etc., etc. Then you have these links for circulars, notifications. These are important bits, especially if you are planning to be actively pursuing taxation as a career. Even if you are working at your employer and are responsible for taxation, these things are something which come in handy. So it doesn't take much, maybe 20 minutes, half an hour daily, to keep yourself updated with all these latest happenings. You can see all these circulars. You can even download and save their PDF for your record and references. You can see circular number 7 of 2017, 6, etc. Treatment of out-of-pocket expenses for the purpose of determination of value of taxable services in cases where a service is liable to tax on the basis of gross amount charged, etc. Always a good idea to go through them. Then similarly, you have these various notifications. You should be going through restoration of registration. Okay, let me just show you this one. In fact, it's quite recent, came on 6th of December. It's been opening. Here you go. So they have outlined that these people who have paid their liabilities, etc., have been restored. So this is a very specific in persona nature of notification, etc. Keep yourself updated with these developments. They always come in handy. Then news and media, you can go through the various things happening there. You are more interested on the background, the management of SRB, their organizational organogram. You can go through these things, make yourself more accustomed to the process that are there. This is perhaps one of the, if not the most important link. You can download the set of all the acts, rules, amendments applicable, notification circulars I've already shown you. You can also go through the publication and the service categories. You want to go through some archives, the prior version of various stuff, you can go through them, and all the forms are also available. So you have the challan form, you have the return filing form, if you want to file it for some reason manually. You have the tax payment challan form, you have the appeal form, etc., etc. You can go through them all. This is the organogram. So this is how the organization is working in Sindh Revenue Board. Under the chairman, you have the DC headquarters for coordination, media management. You have the legal. Then you also have the members directly working with the chairman, member audit, support, policy, and taxation. Then you have their teams working under that. You also have the Secretary SRB reporting directly to the chairman and having the board secretarial under him. So this is just to give you an idea how the SRB is functioning in terms of the organizational structure. Then we have these acts, rules, and amendment, which I have already shown you earlier, if you remember, in the legislation section. So you can download these, and they do come in very handy. And somebody asked me where can they find the previous rates. Here you can find all these finance acts and the previous versions, where you can also get these rates. Then we have the publication. There was a conference. You are interested, you can go through that in your spare time. We have the service categories. the major different services which are being covered and their relevant notifications. Then we have the archives. You want to go through that, you can go through it. Not very relevant in terms of most of this is organizational stuff. So yeah, these are some of the relevant bits you should be aware of. Then the SRB helpline we have shared with you. The email responses normally are good, but we always suggest that you follow that up by phone calls and ideally, if possible, by at least a visit. If not, then at least phone calls. They are a must if you want to get results out of them. Lastly, a word of caution. These provincial revenue authorities are doing a very good work considering that they have been a recent phenomenon. Remember, it was the amendments brought in 2010 that really gave birth to them, and even SRB, the eldest or senior most of all provincial revenue authorities, only came into being in 2011. So this being only the 6 years till now. In terms of that, the laws, the processes, and even their internal workings are continuously evolving. Their website is constantly changing. Processes are continuously changing. So that is something you must keep in mind and be ready to adjust with the changes in coming time too. So for example, initially there wasn't much of a concept of the tribunal. The audits weren't very much heard of, but these things were introduced with time. And similarly, as the time passed, more of these initiatives will come. One major issue that we do face with these provincial authorities is the harmonization problem. I mean, the world is moving towards one single global village in most of the Europe. One single VAT is applied to the entire economic area, and that's adjustable among the member countries. And here we have within one country, even the provinces are facing these issues that how to adjust the taxes deducted, sales tax on services deducted by various provinces. Now this do bring a problem for practitioners as well as more importantly for businesses who have to spend more time and resources on managing their taxation affairs. ACCA has been continuously proposing for a harmonization agenda, and the good thing is that some initiatives have started to happen. I mean, there have been some works between various revenue bodies and FBR for harmonization, but the need is for harmonization among the various provincial revenue authorities themselves. With that, I'll take your questions and you'll have on screen my contact details. If you have any questions about today's session or even later on, you have any professional issue, you want any guidance or any other technical topic, you are more than welcome. You have details of my office, which is very close to the FBR's office. In fact, right opposite it. You have my contact details, my office details, my email. The website is under development. I don't use Facebook, so my alternate social media addresses. The best way to reach me is either by sending me an email or ideally a quick message on my cell. You can do that by SMS or any other program that I'm using. But do send a brief intro, your name, and this is the first time you attended the session, so I know who you are and I can save it for future reference and answer you. So now if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, the first question is from Arsalan Kaushik. If company A withholds sales tax on invoices from company B and don't deposit tax with authority, what will be the penalty? Who will be responsible for non-payment? Company A or company B? A very interesting question, I must say. Good one, Arsalan. I feel like you have had the unfortunate instance of dealing with this problem. Well, Arsalan, the issue is this, that company A can be prosecuted and penalized for not submitting the tax with the depository, with the treasury, and that should be the case. However, the law of the land is such that if the company A can't be traced and prosecuted, I know this may sound unjust to some, but that's how it works. Then company B is liable. If they can't get their hands on company A, then company B is liable. So you be very careful with who you deal, and that's why you have to check that whoever you are dealing with are active taxpayer and not blacklisted, suspended, etc. Having said that, if they still do not deposit and do get disappeared, then hard luck, cost of the business you have to bear. I hope that clarifies. Khurram Salim, thanks for a very such a comprehensive presentation. Very well done. You're welcome, Khurram. We are glad we were of value. If you guys have any other questions, now is the time to ask. We do have 5 minutes still. This is like one-on or what?
It's just, yeah, it's one-on-one.
So all of them will get this?
No.
Okay, yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Or I can select who I want. Good. Okay guys, I'm giving you a minute to write your questions. In fact, what's the hurry? I'll give you 2 minutes. Okay, we have the questions coming. Mudassir Abbas Kazmi Saab asks, kindly guide me how to change registration from business to salaried individual for income tax. Okay, since we have some time now, I am pleased to answer that. In case of income tax, the relevant department is FPR. You want to change it from business to salaried individual, you have to write an application to your commissioner of the relevant RTO. They will issue you a no objection certificate and the necessary changes will be made. They'll either contact the PRAL, Pakistan Revenue Automation Limited directly, or they'll ask you to do that along with that NOC, and your relevant details will be amended. Mudassir Abbas Kazmi Sahab is answered. Now is Moiz Ahmed. If invoice gross amount includes both services and goods, what to do in this case? Bifurcate. Go for the relevant bit. Sayyid Usama Shah said, thank you for the amazing and interactive session. Appreciate it. Well, you are welcome, Usama. We are glad we were of value and look forward to seeing you in future sessions. And we hope that you'll continue to take out your time. Thank you for sparing time on the weekend too. Muhammad Rafi, can we have previous text related presentation and audio recording? Very thankful to you. You are most welcome. Yes, you can have. They are available on ACCS channels on Vimeo and YouTube. Arsalan Kashif, say company A filed their returns without disclosing tax withheld. However, they agreed in emails or writing that they withheld. Company B has filed returns disclosing tax withheld by company A. PS point, company A is the only client of company B. I might need your contact details to discuss the exact scenario. I think that would be best, Arsalan. In this scenario, the company A is liable to deposit unless they are running away and going under the radar, in which case, unfortunately, company B will be responsible. For specific discussions, you have on screen my contact details. Please feel free to message me and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. If I'm not able to immediately respond, that must be because I'm in a meeting or busy or traveling, but I do make it a point to reply as soon as possible, normally within a day or two. Qasim Khan Jadoon. Okay, great. Last 2 minutes, guys, make use of it. You have any problem, any questions? Now is the time. Even outside the topic, you can ask right now because we have finished it in time. See, Seth, the session was so awesome. There are no questions. Normally, you have questions and it's hard to answer. Today, all of them are answered and there are no questions left. Rana Ali Arsalan Khan.
That's why
awesome webinar. Thanks a lot.
That's why we are not getting any questions.
Okay. Well, you're most welcome and very kind of you, Rana Saab. Charles Godwin, nice session. Oh, good to see you again. He is one of our regular and very nice members from, I think he is from Karachi. Good to see you. Madia Sohail, is there any certificate available after it? Oh, yes, of course, Madia, you'll get them through email. Osama Hassan, you were great in providing info. Well, thank you, Usman Hassan. Thank you, Usman. I appreciate your kind feedback and you guys joining us. So I guess that's pretty much it. We got a question. In fact, 2, 3, 4, awesome. Just when it's time to go, that happens. Never mind. Akhir, but in which situations do we have to pay a minimum of 0.5% sales tax? There is a 0.5% turnover tax of income tax. Moiz Ahmed, is sales tax withholding same for all provinces? No. Moiz, it differs from province to province depending on their own relevant legislations. But yeah, it is quite standard because I'll share with you informally. They have just kind of replicated with minor changes as per their priorities. Mudassar Abbas Kazmi, if a person have foreign income and transferred it to another person's account in Pakistan, when he will be back to Pakistan, what will be the treatment for that income for both sender or receiver? Well, if the person who transferred it from abroad transferred it through banking channel and in dollars, and it was received in a bank in Pakistan in rupee, it would be categorized as a foreign remittance. And for the person receiving it, they should declare it in their income and wealth statement, and there are no tax implications. It's tax exempt. Now, when the other person comes, it depends on what they do with this income, whether they invest it in an asset, whether that is transferred back to person A. So depending on what you want to do with the funds, then would determine the nature of the tax treatment. Excuse me. Talat Hussain, what is the best way to stay updated regarding SROs? You go through the links I showed you, Talat. Similarly, you also have those links on other revenue authorities bodies as well as FPR. Make it a habit to go through them and you will be updated. Madiha Suhail, thank you so much, sir, for this. You are most welcome, Madiha. Thank you for attending. Karis, please inform that the case related to the sales tax charge on the rent is still pending or concluded. I'll have to check that with my office. So send me an SMS on Monday and I'll update you. And what is the view according to you? Well, the matter is under litigation, so let's not comment on that. It's about to be decided, or maybe the judgment might have even been released till now. So under ACCA's ethics, we are conducting a session for ACCA today. We shouldn't violate them. Any other questions? I'm sure as soon as they are waiting, as soon as I'll tell them, good, by Allah Hafiz, the questions will come. So let's wait for a minute before I do that. Jazakallah, sir, for such informative sessions. Sidra Suleiman, Jazakallah, Sidra. We appreciate your kind comment. They keep us motivated. And I guess that's it for the day. Thank you very much, guys. We appreciate you taking time out on a weekend, on a Saturday. We hope this was of value to you. And please do share your feedbacks, especially in terms of the topics that you would like to be covered in future sessions. You can email it directly to Mr. Harun Jan, the Head of Member Affairs. You have my contact details. You can send me your ideas too. Or if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. I wish you all the best. Have a good weekend, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the future session. Take care a lot. Have a good weekend, and thank you.